Hi, welcome to the Belfry. This is the Brabazon course. We're on the 16th hole. My name is Chris Ryan, and in this video we're talking chipping. And if you're a higher handicapper or maybe a beginner golfer, I've got some great tips and some ideas that you can use to help you better deal with this situation. Just before we get into the video, in the corner of the screen, anytime back now, you should have the details for my social media accounts. So you've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, and you've got Instagram, so please make sure you go ahead and you follow me on those. So let's just quickly talk through the situation I've got, and then we're going to go through exactly how you're going to play it and some tips that you can use out on the golf course. So I've only got about 3 or 4 paces to the green, but I've then probably got in the region of 40-45 feet to that flag. Now, if you watch any golf on TV, so that's maybe the European Tour, the PGA Tour, the Ladies Tour, you will often see these golfers from this situation taking out one of their wedges. That might be their sand iron, it might be their lob wedge, it might be something in the region of 52, 54 up to 60 degrees. Now these golfers that we watch sort of week in, week out, they're extremely skilled at playing these shots, and they would often tend to use 1 or 2 of their clubs around the green, so one of their wedges. You'll often see them fly that ball 2/3 of the way, a little bit of check, and it rolls out, and hopefully they tap that putt in. Now if you're a beginner golfer or maybe a slightly higher handicapper, your skill level might not be quite advanced enough to execute that shot on a regular basis. There is definitely going to be a better option for you, which is going to help you get that ball closer and give you a little bit more margin for error. So really, the option I want you to take is one where we choose less loft. So I've got an 8 iron in my hands here. Now I would suggest maybe going down to a 7. Maybe not lower than a 7, but a 7 would be good. So you've got a 9, you've got an 8, you've got a 7, and effectively they've got lower loft. They're going to project the ball out on a lower flight, and that ball's going to have a lot more rollout. What that means is that you have to land the ball much closer to where you are currently. Now it's much easier for us to land the ball on a spot which is closer to us than it is to a spot which is much more in the distance. So straight away we're making this task a little bit easier. What we then like to do is go through a few setup changes which are going to help us strike the ball better, but also give us the biggest margin for error if we don't quite get it as we would like. So the first thing we'd like you to do is stand much closer to the golf ball as you raise up the handle. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I just set the club in its playing angle, what I mean by that is the sole of the club is resting about parallel to the turf. This would be fine if I was going to hit a full shot and generate some speed and some power. I'm not. I'm going to play a shorter shot. So what I would like to do is raise the handle up and walk in much closer by maybe some 6 to 10 inches. So I significantly feel closer to the golf ball, and because I've raised the handle up, the grip end is now much further away from the ground than it was originally. What that means is I now need to go down the handle by some amount. Now for me, I'm going to go almost right down to the end of the grip. This might depend on your club that you've got, but certainly we want you to go down the handle as we've raised that one up a little bit. That's going to help you get a little bit closer into the golf ball and gain a little bit more control. So what we've effectively done here is 2 things. We've created a situation where the golf club is going to be swung on a slightly straighter plane. It won't be straight, but it's going to be straighter. And we've also slightly increased the angle of approach. Because I'm standing closer, the golf club's going to have a little bit more up and a little bit more down in it. It's not going to be very much around. Those golfers who stand too far away often find that they have an approach which is too shallow, and they often sort of scuff the ground a little bit before. These setup changes are going to hopefully help eliminate that. So if we then go to the front on camera, we've got those setup changes there. I would like you to set up with the ball about in the middle of your body. So that's pretty much under my buttons or zip or whatever it may be, pretty much under your chin. And I want there to be slight amount of lean forward in the club shaft, not excessively. You'll also notice that I've got my heels pretty close together, probably only about the width of a club head, and I've probably got both arms relatively relaxed. Now, what I would like you to do from here is make some practice strokes and make contact with the ground. Now, what you're looking for is the contact with the ground. You should feel that, but it shouldn't really restrict the club too much in its movement. If you start setting up where the handle is too far forward and the club head is too far back, you're either going to start to have an interaction with the ground which is too much, too aggressive, and it kind of stops the club, or in an attempt to fix that, you're going to start leaning to the right, and we start to create some setups which will look maybe a little bit awkward, a little bit more like this, where I've sort of created some strained positions here. And what that's really going to do is, again, it's going to affect my contact. So there's a couple of things that we'd like to do in the setup which are going to help you execute this shot much better. And I certainly think it's a shot which maybe requires a little bit of practice, but if you can do that and then take it onto the course, I would suggest that you're going to get much better results from this situation. So we don't always need to go for the one of the wedges. Certainly something like an 8-iron or a 7-iron is going to help that ball get on the ground and rolling. And if we can make a couple of these setup changes, we should be able to hit this shot a little bit better. Now I'm going to have a go at this one. This is actually an extremely difficult shot I've chosen. There's a huge bank running from the right, almost to the point where the further right I hit this ball, the more it's going to break down to the left. So I'd actually be very, very happy here with about 10, 12 feet left of the flags. It's almost impossible to get it any closer than that. And that would be the last thing I would like you to think about, is manage your expectations. So you're not always going to chip this ball within 2 feet, tap it in, walk off and up and down. It's not going to happen. So certainly, you know, think about the shot you've got, think about the difficulty rating, and maybe accept that you're going to be 10, 12 feet away, and then try and really grind on that putt and see if you can make that putt. So I've got my 8-iron. Let me have a go at this one. I'm going to put this way out to the right and try and use that bank. And we'll see if we can get this ball, let's say, well, inside of 12 feet I'll be very, very happy with. So much, much closer, handle lower, nice neutral setup, a few little practice swings, feel the interaction with the ground is nice and smooth, and then I can go ahead and hopefully execute. Okay, so it's rolling down that bank now, and that was always going to be the result there. But I say I'm not unhappy with that. That's kind of almost the best I could do with that bank on the right there. It almost picked up speed as it came down. But I said I've got that ball probably in that region of 9, 10 feet away. But it was quite a risk-free shot. If I'd hit the ground a little bit before the ball there, because the way I set myself up, I'd have probably only had about another 5 feet on that putt. It's a far better way to play these shots rather than going in for the wedge and playing it all the way and trying to spin it like we see on TV. That might be something you work towards, but that might be a little bit later in your golfing career when you're slightly more skilled at that shot. So I hope that helps. Hopefully it's something you can take straight to the course and get up and down more often, or at least give yourself a better chance of getting more often. So hopefully that video is going to help you. Right, all the usual stuff is down below. You've got a comments box, you've got a like button, and you've also got a link to subscribe to my channel. So if you haven't done already, then please do so. Loads of content already on there and loads more being uploaded weekly. So click that link, subscribe, and you'll get access to all that free content. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.